Hello, solar people, and welcome back to the channel. My name is Trey, and today is part 3, the start of phase 3 of the watercolor summer session, where we're going through my complete process of watercolor. So now we have the images and they have been washed down. I'm going to show a picture right now of what it looked like before the washing. It was nice and vibrant, clear, but then we have to wash it down. This is my full process. I don't usually wash it down for ones on art blocks or watercolor blocks like this one. I can usually do a one pass because I usually use these as tests, some studies before I go on to larger paintings. But I want to show my full process of watercolor. So here we have, they've been washed down, and to wash it down, right, I go to my kitchen sink. I have this very large flat brush. I think it's called a hockey brush. Run the water and then slosh it once, twice, 3 times. I like that sound effect. Okay. And then you dab it with stacked napkins. And it's discolored because all the water and the pigment, you've effectively taken off the top layer. The top layer comes off, and then I sop up the wetness with this napkin, and that is how I give these paintings a bath or washing down. And now we are ready for phase 3. Phase 3 is a combination of phases 1 and 2, and I'll show an image of what the first washing looked like, and then the second washing looks like. Now what you will notice from the first washing to the second washing is that the colors are more vibrant on the second, of course. We have effectively stacked up the saturation of color. There is more pigment and color in these than the first phase, of course. But now that we have washed it down, we're going to reintroduce the colors once more for this final time, and then do the final detailing. Now, phase 3 is much like the combination of both 1 and 2, where we have now broken it down, and we will build it back with some colors, but it's mostly detailing. There's going to be a lot of detailing in this phase. So let's get started with today, pink. So for today with the pink, we have Rose Madder, yes, Rose Madder as the pink color, and we shall introduce this pink with our smallest brushes, this fairly small one, and our tiny detail brush, and just the pink sections. So just the pink. Mix this well, and so the areas of pink that I want to get to are her nose, the corners of her eyes, corners of the eyes. So I have the water droplet here, nose, of course. And a lot of the color has remained from the first 2. All right, so that's her nose. Let's do her hands. Let's do her cheeks. So we're doing the wet until wet for her cheeks, her hands, and feet, and knees. I forgot, can't forget about knees. Knees and elbows, and this is just wet until wet, but I'm just pushing some of that underpainting. I could also do her ears. So her ears, taking some of the water from the right ear and putting it on the left, because I thought there was too much there. And so now, we can do so pink for the cheeks, give it that slightly, and then her ears. This is where a lot of the pigments that underlying the pink in the flesh is. It's usually concentrated in nose, ears, and elbows, kneecaps, and feet. Also around the mouth. All right. And so that is, let's do one more for the cheeks. And so now that's all we're gonna do today. All right, that's it. That's all. And then tomorrow we're gonna do the orange body color, and we're going to lay that on top of all of this, even the pink part, for that final lively orange. So today was pink, and I will see you tomorrow for orange. What was I thinking? There's more than one painting. Okay, so this is painting number 2. Number 2, we do the same thing. We're going to do wet into wet, ears, wherever the most of this pink pigment is. Cheeks, elbows, usually the hands. Swoop, go. Kneecaps, knees, and feet, usually towards the digits and underside of the feet. All right, and now we go with the pink. So first I'm going to do the nose and the eye corners. Nose, eye corners, and then we'll do the ears. The wet into wet, that pinkish for her ears. Again, we can take that, there's too much here, so we'll put that into her cheeks. I'm taking it out of there, put it down here. And does this one need more wet? Yeah, I think it does. Just to smooth it out just a little bit. Back to the pink. Elbow, fingers, fingers. And I almost forgot the snake's tongue, but we'll get to that. Knees and feet and other foot. All right. Maybe a little bit more on their cheeks. Cheek. And let's do this hand for the tongue, but we can do a lot of this dry brush for the snake. All right, and that is that. All right, number 3. Number 3 is the same as 1 and 2. First, we're gonna do, let's see, her nose and the corner of her eyes. So little drops for the eye corners, pink for the nose. Okay, now wet into wet. So for the ears, or there's more pigmentation. For the cheeks, take some of that water, move it around. And for her hands, index, middle, thumb, palm, and pinky. You can't quite see the ring finger. Elbows, maybe coming towards the chest, hand, elbow. Knees, of course, knees. And feet, mostly with the digits and the foot pad. Digits and the foot pad. All right, that pink. Ears and the cheeks. It's starting to dry pretty quickly today. Hands, specifically the fingers, palm, fingers, elbow, hand, and knees, and the feet. And so now we have effectively reasserted those colors. Pink being the color of the day. Now we're going to let this dry, and then we're going to cover all of this pink with the orange. All right, just a little bit more. All right, and so now we've done it. Day 1, phase 3, pink was the color. Tomorrow will be orange. Got a little drop there. All right, so I'll see you tomorrow. Hello and welcome back. So today's colors is orange. It is one of the most important colors for phase 3 in this watercolor summer study, in that we will introduce all of the orange colors, and the colors are, I have 2, the basic orange for the body color, and that includes quinacridone gold, Indian yellow, this rose madder for the pink, Windsor orange, green gold, and burnt sienna. And those are all the colors in this base orange. This is going to go for the overall of Beautiful Bee's Kiss. And then we have this specialty orange, but it's more of a darker color, which has all of these: the quinacridone gold, Indian yellow, rose madder, Windsor orange, green gold, and burnt sienna, all in this, in addition to Van Dyke brown, burnt umber, Indian red, and gold ochre. So those are all the colors that are also within this. So this is the base, and then plussing it with some of these darker and more reds into this orange to make but we'll see how that goes. But those are the orange colors that I have put together in these 2. So let's take a look at what we've got. All right, so we have number 1 for Beautiful Bee's Kiss, and we're gonna do round 3, this is phase 3, of the skin color, and that's why I have these oranges ready to go. So first off, we're gonna mix these and then test them on a scratch sheet to see what that looks like. And my quinacridone gold is slightly, I think I might have a crack in the cap. as it's a little bit harder than the others. But that's the life of, I think we got it. So this is now my base orange. This is my live orange that's going to go over the whole thing. We're going to reapply all of her skin tone, including her hair. Now, I want this the right consistency. I don't want it too wet and too dry. That's any way to speak about it. So this is the base orange. And mostly what I want is coverage. I want to boost this orange color for her skin tones. So that's going to be that. Let's drop some more in there to get a true idea of what the color is going to be like. But also this darker, which has more reds and more browns. Make sure to mix this well. And this is going to be a darker value of her skin tone that you can put underneath her chin, and you can put it in select areas like her underparts of the arm, wherever the shadow is, where shadows would lie on a figure. I would use this darker brownish orange. Let's go test this out. So a much stronger red brown. This is also probably going to be the base for her hair tomorrow. But now we have her base orange and then shadow orange, or reddish brown orange. So let's get started. So let's wash this first. Clean off the brush, dip it in water, swish it around, and then get all that off. But then since they're so similar, it's not too difficult. All right, so a larger brush for coverage, one of my oldest brushes. And the hardest part is getting the pointy areas. So let's try to get that beforehand. So phase 3, this is one of the most important steps in phase 3 because it brings back her skin tones, right? And it's already boosted from layering from phase 1 and 2. We just want to bring those colors, the vibrancy back. I do less layering and color reintroductions in this phase 3, and more focusing on detailing. But I do want to bring the skin tones back up. And also it's not at a consistency that is overpowering and will leave what I call it, edging. Right? When watercolor dries, it leaves an edge to it. So again, we're going to try to get these pointy parts of her hair. Also, since this is the end of the process, I'm feeling pretty secure about it. Right? The heavy lifting has been done, and now it's let's finish this off. Okay, so going around her eyes. And yesterday we did the pink, right? And the pink has a little bit of edging, but we can smooth that over when we apply all of this orange. You can notice that in her face, you can notice the difference between the wash down color and the vibrancy of this new orange, right? And I'm obliterating some of that pink edge that was there before. And this happens when I go over another layer, well, a previous layer with a new layer. Let's get this. Okay. Should I even do her nose? Let's try it. So we're going over all of it, even the pink, well, except for that corner of the eyes. I'll leave that. But that's is pretty much what I want for this layer, right? It brings that warm gold orange back into place, and I will no longer wash it down from this point forward. So whatever is put down stays, and I really want that warm gold to stay. Arms, you get the idea. Now you could be more strategic about your placement of this layer of orange. Like if you wanted highlights of her skin tone, like say on edges, the outer edges, or the upper parts, you can do that. But for me and this particular painting, I think I'm good with coverage more than strategic input output. We're executing the plan. Okay, her tail and her legs and feet. Well, her right foot specifically, and now the left leg. And now at this point I could stain some of this darker. So I try to use it sparingly. Let's say you wanted her under part of that this. And say the size, underside of her tail, underside, and the sides of her legs. Inside, again, inside, and again, like the other phases, we can make it pop with more concentrated dry brush. That is orange for number 1 of Beautiful Beast Kiss. So now we're just putting final touches on, and that is her body color. So let's go to number 2. Okay, pink, orange. All right. And for this one, I did it just a little bit different in that I did her body color for Oliver, excluding the inner part of her hand, and I did the tail in the slightly darker brownish orange, just to push that behind her just a little bit. All right, body color introduced, well, reintroduced. Now let's move on. Number 3. All right, number 3, reintroduction of flesh tone orange, and we are more strategic about this. So for her hand, since we're moving from upper left to lower right, do the back of the hand. We're gonna leave the palm side relatively untouched. And that's, you'll notice that with your own hand, where the palm is more of a pinkish than anything else. All right, let's try to do some of these spikes of her hair and try to keep it away from her hand. All right, so orange all over. This is now the new base coat for all of her face, even the nose. Try to blend these cheeks because there was a bit of an outline. All right, for her arm and the other arm, let's roll this down a little bit more. So I'm blending that pink as we go along. Now I want to be careful of this, of that green. Again, hand. Switch to a smaller brush to get that hand. Nice, nice, nice. Right. For her tail, start at the base and then spread it towards the very extended tip. And her lower legs. Again, at her legs, you can see that there's a bit of bordering with the watercolor and the pink. And as we add the orange, this is why I did the pink first, because I knew this orange would smooth it out. I have now just obliterated the harder edges while keeping the pink. And then I'll actually do this. All right, and now I'm going to leave the pink part of her feet as they are. Got a little drop, you can dab that up. All right, again, like the hand. And finally, we can add some of the brown in certain areas if we want to emphasize this, the far side, away from the light. Okay. I just introduced that to push this brown orange to the edge. And we can do that for the tail. Where else? Far side of her leg, the lower part, and the underside of this. And you can kind of see it bleeding and blending, blending and bleeding. Do a little bit more on this. And that is the orange. We reintroduced it all over, that final, just to punch it up, just to make it just a little bit more vibrant for this final phase. And tomorrow will be red-brown. We're gonna add some red to this, I think, and then we'll go from there. Yeah. So I'll see you tomorrow. All right, welcome back to Summer Study Watercolor, and today's color for Beautiful Beast Kiss. And today's color is red. Red for her hair. And so I have my 3 colors, and we're gonna do a little bit of color management, we'll say. So we have alizarin crimson, which is my classic all-around go-to red. Alizarin crimson. It's my base, Indian red, as an added, and a burnt sienna, which is an earthy red. And I'm going to mix all of these, you can see on this. All right, it's on the edge. But first, we're going to do some water transplants. So we have a dry brush. I haven't dipped it in water, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to soak up all this pink, put it into the brown, and I'm going to put this brown into this because I want to darken this just a little bit. And then I'm going to take some of this and move it over here before we add more water and then add this red. It sounds interesting, probably to just do it don't explain it. So when I transplant colors, I usually I dry brush. It'll also work wet, but it's a bit slower. And so we try to sop up the color and move it to where we want to move it. So I have most of this pink. And we'll take one more swoosh. Okay, so now we have that pink and this brown. This was a darker brown that we used yesterday. And so now this is going to be her base hair color. So I'm gonna move this over here because I want this just a touch darker, just a bit. Okay. So now this is going to be my base orange. I'm gonna wait for this to dry and then I'm gonna use this for dry brushing later on. So I'm doing some of this stuff for applications later. So now this is my yellowish orange red color. And so I'm going to leave this alone. And now this is going to be what we're going to use today. So we're going to sop. We got my eyedropper, touch it along to re-wet these. And I'm going to use a I want this pretty watery. Not too watery, but more watery than usual. And so now I'm blending these colors. The alizarin crimson, Indian red, and burnt sienna into this. And I do this, when I say a fair amount, it's all about problem solving. If you want a color that looks sort of like another color, put that color into that new color. And it might not work sometimes, and it might work splendidly, but you never know until you try it. All right, so now we have a new red, orange, brown color. And this is going to be her base of her hair, which we're going to reintroduce. It might be too red. I think it'll be good. Again, I go off the cuff, I experiment. So now let's bring her in and we'll start to color. Okay, so now we have Beautiful Beast Kiss, #1, and our watercolor and our test swatches. And we're going to try to see what this red color looks like. So, is it too bright for me? I don't know. Let's see. It is pretty bright. But I'm a man of experimentation. And so we're just gonna go. We're going to go for it. I think it'll look good, but we shall see. Okay, so we're reintroducing the red of her hair. And a color will always dry lighter than it paints, which is always interesting with watercolor and something to remember. So how it looks right now, when I'm done with it, it's going to dry a shade lighter, and that's just the process. So sometimes when you think you've gone too deep, too saturated, too much, sometimes that is not the case when you look at the final rendition. And also, of note, I might have made a mistake, and that was not going from this way, or meaning I should have maybe gone this in coloration, because now I'll be fighting a battle on two fronts. Okay, so she's going to dry pretty quickly. That is nice. All my fears have been abated because I think that's a nice red. Red is a color I do not use often because it is a high staining color, meaning that where you put it, it is hard to cover with other colors. So trying to put a blue on top or a green on top, and it will totally overpower a yellow, for example. Okay, so we're going to go, I want to stop it at a certain point. So we're going to go this way, trying to be careful, and also with these edges, because I'll come back to it in a moment. It's a very warm day, and so I'm trying to get some of this. Things will dry very fast, or faster than painting in the spring and summer, especially the summer. Things go faster than painting in winter, where it seems like the drying process, because of the water in the air and the moisture, will cause it to dry slower. Now, some of that might be just perception, because I'm no meteorologist, but it just seems like when I paint in the winter, it's just a little bit slower. Okay, how far do I want to go this downwards? Let's go to about here. So swoosh. Yeah, and that's the top. Okay. Now we're gonna go this way, downwards, and then do this side. You can turn your page as you see fit. I often forget to do that. Now I'm gonna try not to touch this because it's gonna bleed back into it. So I'm gonna leave a gap. I wouldn't need the gap if I had gone this way first and then over. But again, such is life. Oh crap, I got into her head, her ear. If you catch things quickly, you can cut that. But again, there's gonna be some bleedage. But we can cover that, I think, with some dry brushing. But we'll move along. Okay, all right. And that is that side. Let's move on to this side. And try not to get her ear this time. There you go. And not touch this so it doesn't bleed back into it. And again, I make more mistakes when I try to move fast. So sometimes I can move too fast. Talking on camera doesn't help because I'm trying to explain what I'm doing while doing it. Sometimes my brain won't process the two things at the same time. Come on, Trey, get it together. I guess I can talk about nerves as well. That when you start watercolor, nerves can get involved because there's less control. You have to give up control a bit for it because water will do what it wants to do and you can only supervise sometimes. Okay, so that is the red of her hair. I'm kind of liking that red, but we'll see how it dries. We'll see how it dries, and then I might feel differently. I might go, oh, this is a mistake, but too late. Okay, but that is number 1. Okay, now reddish brown for painting number 2. Please kiss. This time we're gonna do it correctly. We're gonna go this and go clockwise. Okay, so first I think we can use a bigger brush. Let's start this side, All right, and go for the finer points. I remember when I was a child, my brother was very good at coloring, and I was terrible at coloring. I could not keep the crayons between the lines to save my life. I don't know why. It was just, and I remember looking at my brother's coloring in his coloring book and was like, how did he keep within the lines? And yet now I'm doing this. It's a crazy mixed up world. Things are just, okay, I'm gonna go this way and then probably pull it this way. Sounds like a plan. There's a lot of thought, I guess, that goes into art that I guess I took for granted when I was a child and that I didn't know the process because you only see finished art when I was younger. You didn't really see the making of stuff or the books that tell you this was made by a person and these are the steps that they went through to do this thing. And I guess that's kind of why I created this channel, because I always liked the process of the making. I have a lot of art books, which is a peek into somebody's process. It usually doesn't just appear. Somebody thought about it and then goes out and makes it. But there's steps, and I really wanted to know what those steps were. Yeah, it's all about the process. And so that's what this channel is primarily about. If you want to make art, do it. Figure out what the process is and then execute. And of course, it might not jump out fully formed the first time, or the second time, or the third time. But I think overall, it will eventually, and that's pretty cool. I think I can do it. I think I can do it. I think I can. Okay. And sometimes it's too wet on one side, I'll move to another place just to spread that color out just a bit and then return and finish it. Oh, all right. And I'll go this way. And usually what am I gonna say? When I start, it's too light, and sometimes I forget things, or certain areas don't pop like I want them to pop. So for example, the ears I thought were getting lost, and I think why I like this red is that it separates her body color, which is an orangey red, from her hair color, which is a red-orange, and it pops out more. Or maybe I'm just feeling satisfied with myself. That's probably another. Sometimes it works out and you're like, yeah, I did that. It's like, no, you kind of guessed and it just turned out. And I'll still take it. I'll still take it as a win. All right. Okay. there's more switching brushes on this one. Okay, this little area. All right, and that is her hair for number 2. That's pretty good. All right, next one. All right, Beautiful Beast Kiss number 3. Watercolor, we're doing her hair. Again, we'll go clockwise, and have a red. Sometimes after a while, the colors will start to settle. Mix it around to even that out. And let's go. It's a bit more complex. Okay. And of course, when we do our detailing, we can bring some of these curls. Because she's a sun tiger, her hair, in my mind, it's like, you know how the curly flame-like hair thing, I guess you can call it a trope, is what I use for her hair. Okay, let's keep going up. And again, you can make highlights. So for example, like at the top of her head, I can shape it to where it looks like there are curls, if one so desired to do that. Or you can also scrape out, that's another option. Sure, why not? Let's, again, we're experimenting. You try things, sometimes it works, sometimes not so much. But again, you never know until you try it. Might work, might not. Yeah, okay, I think we're pretty good. And that is her hair. Now let's go back to number 1 and number 2, and we can add. Okay, so now we're back to number 1, and we have some touch-ups we can do at this point. It should be fairly dry, but maybe wet enough that it might bleed a little. Let's see. I usually try something like this in an area that's not incredibly difficult. Okay, and so we're bringing back some of these hair curls, and we're going to keep it low. Right? We don't want to go too high, although I'll do some bottom strands. So this with the detailing we'll do later will hopefully give me my desired effect. And all of this is just bonus. This isn't necessary. Just I like it. Okay, I'm gonna go and just to separate some of these curls out. But also the detailing will also work with that. Okay, and detailing. Sharpening some of these curls. Start sharpening curls. Alright. Now we're on the lower. Would this be the east side of the body? I guess nobody actually says that, right? That your hand could be, your right hand could be the east side. But I guess it depends on which. Oh God, I'm kind of zoning out. And I'm in the moment, but my mind is also wandering. And I start to think of odd things. All right, so yeah. She's a simpler figure, but on a more detailed one, you can go crazy with it. Wet into wet, dry brush, different colors of the same shade, different colors of different shades, like an orange and a blue and a green and an orange. You know, there's no rules, whatever you make up. All right, again, I'm gonna do some just plussing of some of these, especially the bottom of some of this red, just to help define these curls a little bit. And again, I can dry brush this later to help with the effect. I'm just trying to shape some of this, especially the main curls. All right, I'm gonna go this and that's that and some of this. All right, I think that's enough for this one. And now number 3. Now, since this is the one we just did the most recently, it might still be wet. So mostly we're just gonna stain this lower part. Ooh, no, it is pretty dry. All right. But yeah, we'll do most of this dry brush later with darker, but we just want to shape up some areas. And find some of this underside of her major curls. And that is, I think, enough of the red. All right. So that is the red. Of course, when this dries and this dries, we can do some slight tweaking. I can define some of this upper part when this dries. So that'll be that for that. Next will be, let's say, the blue. Undershirt, under blue, and then so until then, see you tomorrow. Hello again, and today is, another day of watercolor summer study. And the color today will be mauve, or light purple blues in 2 shades, and that will be for Beautiful Beast Kiss. So the colors are, for this center, we have Rose Madder, Permanent Magenta, and Permanent Mauve. And that will be for the wings of Beautiful Beast Kiss. Wings, the blue, we have 2, the light and the dark. The light here, dark here. The light is cerulean blue, cobalt blue, and Windsor blue green shade. And that is all in my lighter shades of blue. This is also a good cloud cover color. And then in the darker, we have all of this, the cerulean blue, cobalt blue, and Windsor blue green shade, plus ultramarine, French ultramarine, Prussian blue, which is a classic. I've always gone for this Prussian blue. It's a beautiful blue. And indigo. Indigo is slightly darker, is a newer color of mine, but I always get this Prussian blue, and I go through a lot of it also. And that is all in this darker shade. So now that we have our colors, let's get to painting. All right, now that we have our colors mixed, let's test them out on our nice handy dandy scrap paper. So first we'll do the magenta. Well, it's a pinkish light purple, I guess. And we'll put that here. It's looking pretty good. Some more in there. Next, the blue. This is my light blue. It's a beautiful sky blue, I think. Hence why I use it a lot in skies. Okay, and that's that. And now for the dark, which is all of that light blue plus some darker. And everything looks pretty good. So we're gonna let these dry, and then we'll check back in a little bit. But let's get to painting. When you get used to mixing and you pretty much know what the colors are going to be, a lot of times you can just eyeball it. So this magenta, which is her wing color, magenta, and blue. There's also chocolate or a deep brown, but since she's so simplified that's not even a thing really. All right, now for the dark, light blue as the base, and then we can do some wet into wet with this dark blue. So light blue. I could also do her eyes if I so choose. Do I want to do that? Do I? As an under, and then the green will sit on top of it. I think that would be nice. And blues and greens are very close, so there shouldn't be any clashing unless that's what you want. Sometimes that's what you want. So I'm going to paint all the blue, reintroducing all that color. So all of this overall is to punch up the colors, really get it into the paper fibers, and on every round that you do this, it gets darker and darker. And I've sometimes gone past three washes, but after a while the impact seems less and less. So it's like you're working more and more for just less gains, I guess. But of course, it's your painting. Experimentation is key. Well, let's do what you want. Do what you want. I love painting blue. Blue is my favorite color, and this shade of blue is just spectacular, in my opinion. My grandmother's favorite color was it yellow? Like a canary yellow? And I was like, who enjoys yellow? I'm sure there are people out there that love yellow is their jam, like my grandmother. Oh, Grammy. Okay, so we have some dark. We'll put some dark at the lower edge and at the base, and then come back to this blue. And then if you reapply, right, it'll push this darker back. I'm always sort of amazed by the reactions of watercolor on itself, where there is a reactivity that can happen. And that is, all right, let's go this a little bit more. Back to the light blue and reintroduce. It'll push that darkness up. It'll push that darkness. All right, and for her ankle thingy, all right, we're just gonna do the middle, and then the dark will be all this side, and you will note the bleeding, and we can shape it when we do our dry brush. Also, let's give it a little bit, all right, just a little bit more definition. And that is the blue for number 1. Yeah. All right, number 2. Now to check in with this little color swatch, here's that light pink, well, a pink, purple, mauve, magenta, whatever you want to call it, the light blue, and the dark blue. Nicely done, nicely. I pretty much knew what the outcome was going to be. It was gonna look good. I know. Oh, what am I doing? So we did some blue, and then we faded it. Fade. So we're using this light blue base as our wet until wet base. And where the dark will meet the light, we can transition around here. We did wet, light blue, and then dark blue on the dry parts upper, and then let it bleed into each other. And for the ankle, I don't want to do this. We're going to wet this whole side, and then transition darks from this side. All right, and that is number 2 blue. This one didn't need too much, although on the green pass, there will be a lot to do. So that's number 2. All right, number 3, same as the other 2. Since we have wings in this, we're going to, let's see, I've darkened, unfortunately, the light magenta, and now it looks a little bit darker. So I think to adjust, we'll do the wings with water first. Lay the water down. We don't want too much water, just enough to knock it back just a bit. Okay, now we have that, and we have a bluish, all right, and this side. So if anything looks too dark sometimes, you can just add water, either by laying down water first, or I could add more water to it for the same effect. All right, wings done. We'll go in with the blue when it's dry. Well, we could do dry brush. I'm not too worried about it. Okay, so blue and some water. Go to my blue, and okay, again, we're going off of this as the light source. The gem is emitting light, so dark areas will be on the far side of objects. So this, we're gonna lay down this blue as the wet, and then dark on the far side, and then link them up. Okay, switch it in some water, light blue. Okay, light blue for undershirt around her neck and the shoulder part. So the darkness will be away from the light source. So far side, and then along this edge, the back. All right, swish it. Blue is the base. All right, so we're gonna do this a little differently. We're gonna have a section that is wet. We're gonna swish it in water. We're gonna have another section that is more water, right, where the transition area is. And then we're gonna go back to the blue, go from this part to where the water is. And then for the dark, do the dark and go from the back again. Once those are introduced, from the back to the front, and you can see it's bleeding. And if we want to push back on that dark, we could add either more water or this blue. Swish it. I want a bit of a better transition. I can't remember if I did this area. Okay, for the legs, let's see. We could do again, swish it in some water on where the transition area is. So let's say the water is here, as it's going to be our transition point. All of this is lighter. And then we'll have this blue on this edge, transitions up and into the water, and also here, and then transitioning into that water. And as for, let's see, the middle is all of this light blue, and we transition into that water again, to that water. And then it's dark, we'll go from this side plane and then transition into that wet, watery. And you can add more blue to make that transition. More blue for that transition. Right. So we can see where the light, there's like this swoopy, yeah, that's technical. This swoopy area of light. And as for this, the top is being hit by light. Let's swish it in some water and let's wet this side. Use this blue and maybe wet this area, and the rest will be dark. Alright, we'll let this dry and then we'll dab up some of that blue. But there we have, anything else? Anything else? Just touching up some areas. We can do this in the dry brush phase, of course, since I'm here. While I'm here, alright, now I didn't touch her eyes up with some blue, so I'm gonna do that. Now, waiting for the bottom part to dry. So, her eyes, again, you can do light blue at the bottom and then dark blue at the top. Blue, dark blue, and then meet the blue, the light and the dark, and then they'll bleed. All right. Now that'll fade back when we introduce the greens, the wet into wet greens, but I like that. All right, swishing in some water, and I think we're pretty much done. Just dab in some, okay, we have our napkin, make it into a point, and then we can push, and that is how we get some of the paint up. And that's how I stop unintended bleeds. You can see the blue on the napkin. Dab it, dab it, dab it, dab it, dab it. All right, anytime you make a mistake, you can sometimes dab it up. But best to do it when it's wet. You get up more paint. Trying to go back and fix it makes a whole nother mess. And then we'll shape it up with dry brushing later. So tomorrow, or the next one, will be greens. The light green up top, dark green, and then we should be fantastic. I want just a little bit more blue on this side of the body. Okay. Now I think we're done. We're done. We're done. Walk away, boy. Walk away. Okay. Mistakes were made, but we got what we needed. And so I will see you next time with greens. Hello again and welcome back to Summer Study Watercolor. And today's color is green. So we have two dishes with green, light green, dark green. And the light green, we have green gold, one of my favorite golds, well, favorite greens, as I use for a base for large areas. If you're gonna do a field of green, I would start with this one. Olive green is the next up, and permanent sap green. These are my three light colors. I use these often, very often, because in nature, green is usually a main color. A yellowish green, green, brownish greens, all of that. And then on the darker side, we have all of this, the green gold, olive green, and permanent sap green in this. In addition, we have oxide chromium, which is a dark green, a Windsor green yellow shade, which is a more bluish tone. I feel more blue in there. I think you can see that up top. So it's a bit of a green, bluish green, and it's also fairly dark. And perline green. And these are I use all of this for my dark greens. And today, of course, we're gonna do the eyes, the tank top, and the dress. All green. So let's get started. So we'll take these off, put them to the side. So now we have our greens. Will I need the big one? I don't think so. So start with the eyes. We'll do the darks up top, fade it down with the lighter green, fade it down. Tank top is lighter green. We're gonna do some of the edge work with this dark on the sides. And then the dress is darker, but we're gonna start with this light green base. So let's go. So first up, mix all those greens, try to make sure it's smoothed out. And now we're gonna start up top and then bleed the lighter green in. So top, drop that in again. Up top, and then dab some in. Do I need to, yeah, I'll switch it. Swish it around in the water bucket, and then mix this light green. And now this will be, we're not gonna join them at first. We're gonna add that, and then bring that down, okay. And now we're gonna join the two. And then, yep. Again, we're gonna do the same on this side, and we're gonna join them. All right, and that is the green for our eyes. Now what I just did, the dark green up top, and then adding the light green, it'll bleed in and then push that green upwards, the darker green upwards, but also it'll bleed back into it. So it's a slight transition from the dark part of the eye down into the light areas. And so that is the eyes. Now for the tank top, we're going to do the sides, much like the eyes. Sides. Now, swish it. Got our light green. We're going to go from the top, bring it all the way down. In the detailing, we'll get some of these edges, but for now, we want coverage. Bring it all the way down. And now let's bring the two together. Dark and light, again on this side, darkness and light. So it softens, so it looks like she has a harder edge on the outside. And especially when we do the dry brush, that will come more and more into focus. All right, now for the dress, we're gonna use the base green, this light green, to do all of this, and then come in with that dark. So should I go left to right? Now if ever you want an edge to be a highlight, don't go to that edge. So on upper portions, I can carve this out so I'm not touching this upper part. But I also don't touch the lower, so that when we do bring in the darks, we can have that darker go down to the bottom. And I'll show that in just, okay, add some green to get that wet. And darker green. I'm going to do lower and let it bleed upwards. But since my desk is on a slant, it won't go too far, but I can push it up, but keep moving across. So it's fading a transition upwards. Let's do a little bit more at the bottom. Now I could leave it for a moment, or I could also flip it upside down. And since again, my desk is on a slant, it'll bleed a little faster and a little more towards this end, towards the head. And that is, we'll shape it up when we do the detailing work at a later date, once the green's dry. And that was number one. All right, number two, greens. So with this one, we're going to focus on the snake first. We're gonna pause, go to number three, then come back and do the tank top dress. Just so we can separate out, we can put these down. Don't know why. Okay, so swish it in water. You can also, if you have a paper towel handy, clean it. And now for the snake, we're gonna do light. We're gonna leave this untouched, the tail, to make it seem like it's the farthest back. We're gonna do light on this part. So we're doing background, middle ground, foreground for the snake. That's the idea. So light green for the middle ground, and then for the foreground, and then add the darker green, bleed that in, so that punches this up. So first, this mid-ground. Okay, now that these colors are punched up, right, there's a difference between here and here. We could bleed a little green in there. Just a little bit, just to push that. Okay. Now for this is also the mid-ground. Go back, this light green. We're gonna go all the way. We could do the head first, and then how do I want to do this? Or we could go back like this and this, meet in the middle. I think that might be the bestest way to do it. Okay. So now we can go to the head and do this. Okay. And also now we can reintroduce some of that, just to keep it moist, keep it wet. We continue with this part, and then we'll join them together in the middle, because I would be afraid that if we started here, it went all the way up, that this part would be drier. And then so it would look darker when you add the darks. Areas with more moisture or wetness for watercolor will be not as dark as if you just add a dark. All right, so now we can do the darks and push that forward. All right, move this up along the chain, and I want the darkest concentration around here. Okay, and there we go. All right, now we're gonna pause this, move to number 3, and then come back to do the tank top and the dress. So we can let this dry so that we don't have any bleed ins and all of that. So pause and let's move. All right, green for number 3. Green for number 3. So we're gonna do the same as the first one. I'm gonna do the dark for the eyes and then transition that. And then the light for the tank top. We might do some blotting for the chest area, and then fade this dark to the light and light part of the dress, and then dark. And that should be the plan. But since we have this light source here, this gem, the tiger's eye, is lighting this part of her body. So we have a semblance of a light source. So we have green up top and green up top. Might be too much. All right. Swish it, go to the light green, and then start at the middle, and then transition up. We're gonna leave that there for a moment. And then transition. So you can see the darker green on the upper part of the eye, and that the lighter green bleeds upwards. All right, now let's do the dress. Well, tank top first. All right, so how about this? We start with the dark green, put it on this light green, and go to the back, bring that forward. All right, now we're gonna bring these two together. In fact, we're gonna cover some of that. And for the dark, we'll do the upper part of this, let that bleed, but also go from the back to the front. And of course, it will dry lighter than it is right now, but also we can push some of this darker green back by adding more light green. Push it back, push it back, push it, push it back, push it back, push it. And also, we can use napkins to pull up some of the green. So let's try that. Usually fold it up, and then you just dab it. So where the gem is hitting would be do. Right? And so we have some of the green on the napkin. Again, it'll fade as it dries. Push that a little bit back. Now for the dress, light areas here and here. And then the rest is dark. So we'll go in with our dark. Blend these together. And then dark areas over here. And then dark over here. And again, we can blend these areas into each other. And dark and light. So that there's some consistency between this and this. A little bit more this far side. But we'll also be doing more of this in the detailing phase. All right, and that is the green for number 3. Back to number 2. All right, back to number 2. Same deal that we did with 1 and 3. Dark for the eyes, eye tops, then transition at light green, then light green for the tank top, light green wash, and then dark green. Trying not to put my hand through this snake. Dark green upper eye, dark green, maybe a little more. Dab, swish in the water, light green. We're not gonna connect the two yet. We're gonna lay down the light green, lay down the light green, and then connect them. Connect and connect. So there we have her eyes. Okay. Now for the tank top, again, we're gonna do the darker on the sides, just to push out where its definition is. And now, switch it light green, and we're gonna bleed those two and pull it across. And so here, now we have our lighter green tank top. I'm trying not to touch this edge just in case it's still wet so I don't get any bleed in. I'll probably go over this line in the detailing phase with that dark green, just for some more separation and to cover this now light halo. Right, there's a bit of a light halo, but I'm not going to touch that. All right, and maybe some more darker green just on this far side, just to blend it, and maybe for some under. All right, now for her dress, again, a light green base, light green. I'm going to leave this rim alone. I want coverage for this light. I'm going to start here and then move it that way. Let's do that because I want this side slightly darker. I'm going to take all that light green and move it across. Let's start in the middle. Again, moving this way. Okay. And let's say to contrast all this darker greens, we're going to leave this alone. So for the darker green, we want it to be darker on this side. Transition to a mid and a light. So we'll take all this, right, and then move it. Don't want a lot of color on it. We just want some. Again, reinforce this dark and then transitioning it over. One more time. Dark. Try to get some of this under the underside of the dress. All right. And that is the greens. And I think that's it for, oh wait, stripes. Yes. All right. Stripes are tomorrow. And then after that, I believe we can do just total detailing work to bring this thing on home. So until then, I will see you next time. Hello again. It's Phase 3 Watercolor Summer Study with Beautiful Beast Kiss and watercolor. And today's color is the brown of her stripes because she's a winged tiger girl. And the colors that we have for today, so they're all in here. All of this is in here, but I've broken it into the main colors that we're using. So for the orangey area of this brown stripes is Indian yellow, yellow ochre, and gold ochre. And that's in the yellowish, orangish area, all in here. And then in the brownish area, we have burnt umber, burnt sienna, which is one of my favorite burn colors, and Van Dyke brown. This is my chocolate brown. I use this a lot. I love it, love it. Any chance to use it, I will use it. And then on the darker end of the brown for the stripes is magnesium brown and sepia. Two colors I'm not really that fond of, but I'll try to use them to get some use out of them, and then I'll probably upgrade to something maybe just a little bit more colorful, but they're in there as well to kick it up a notch, just to make it a little bit darker. So we have the image, we have the brown that we're going to be using for the stripes, and I've gone over the colors. So let's get to painting. All right, so stripes is what we're doing today. So let's get busy. So we got our browns all in here, and now we'll mix it all up. Try to mix it as well as I can to make sure that no pigment is unmixed into the water. That would be bad. Okay, so now we have a nice warm orangey yellow chocolatey brown, and this is now our base for the stripes. Now I have some dried over here, which is a darker, and we're going to be using this for the detailing. Well, this and this for detailing very soon. This is the last day. This should be one of the last days of base colors. Okay, so let's get in there. There's a bit too much on the brush, so I'm going to be bouncing around to smooth it out. And this phase 3 is the reintroduction of the colors, but also a preparation for the final. Because I've come to realize, well, this is just my own process, that not to go too dark with the final round, right? You want it to look just a little bit more natural, right? That you can feel the texture of the paper underneath, and so that you have everything, the color, the character, the colors, and the texture of the paper, all of it that you can feel, the slight randomness that happens in watercolor. I want that, and this is how I get that. All right, today shouldn't be a long day. And painting, detailing is where we get serious. I think I'm going to leave the tail mostly the same. I will do this upper part though, so that this looks like it's slightly in shade, maybe on the underside. And then leg stripes. So phase 3 is no heavy lifting, just rounding it out, it feels like. And plus we're just building up on what we did before, so there shouldn't be so much to think about, because we got it. We got everything that we need. So there we are. Number 1, we just touched up the stripes just a little bit. Nothing too crazy. Let's move on to number 2. All right, number 2, we got our brown. And we're doing stripes. All right, eyebrows, facial stripes, and her distinctive pattern. So pretty much for phase 3, we're just pushing it just a little. And whoop, no. It's not the time to get confused. Okay, so tail and legs. Whoa. Maybe I should turn it back, because I am reaching for that way too often. Okay, leg stripes. Okay, and her left leg stripes. We don't need that much. Maybe a little bit to indicate her kneecap. Just all right. And next up is number 3. Number 3, same as number 1 and 2. Put those stripes back. Well, they're already there. We can see them. We're just touching them up. Again, upper left to my lower right. Upper left, lower right. So I'm not dragging my hand through places it should not be, and generally making a mess of things. We have come too far to make a mess of things. All right, eyebrows, and now facial stripes. Right. There isn't really a perceptible difference, right? And that's okay. Sometimes it looks dramatically different, and sometimes it looks like you're just going over the same spot with the same color, and I don't notice the difference. But can you feel the difference? And you might say no. No, I don't. And that's acceptable, right? It's like, sure. But to me, this is my process and how I feel about it. And it works for me. And that is number 3. And I think we're good. Like I said, short and sweet. Now we have officially done it all, pretty much. Tomorrow will be the start of dry brush. There's going to be a lot of dry brush. We take a very teeny tiny pointed brush and we go in with some water in these dry color areas. Try to get the consistency right, and then we outline, detail, generally plus up the image to its final form. And that is tomorrow. And then we'll be pretty much done. We're pretty much done, because we see it, right? It's there. It's good. I think it's fun. And so I will see you tomorrow for some detailing. Hello. So this is one of the final days of this phase 3 of watercolor summer study, where we are doing Beautiful Beast Kiss in watercolor. We have done said watercolor, and now we're moving on to detailing. So I have these, which are now all dry. Various colors. I have green, brown, blue, a light purple, some orange, some various greens, red, orange. And we're going to detail this thing. But I think you get the idea. I think we have the idea of how this thing works, because we've done it before. So I'm going to speed this up. I'll probably do a little bit here and then show you the end result. But yeah, we got it. We did it. We just have a lot more to do, because detailing can take some time. So what colors am I going to use? I'm going to use, I think I'm going to go for this blue, and we don't need a lot. Right? So we're taking water on the brush, emptying it out into the dish. So we have that. Put that down to this area. And we're going to start with the eye outlines, do some more head definition, some eyes, and then we'll move on to 2 and 3. But let's put some brown. Which brown am I going to use? I'm going to use this one or this one. This one or this one. This one or this one. I have 3 browns. I could use this one. This one looks good. I like this one. I'm just making stuff up as I go, which is pretty normal for me. But this is the end. This is the long but fun part. Why is this part long? Because detailing, it's a very tiny brush and we're going very slow, very methodically across this, touching up things, and I always find things that need to be touched up. So it can take me some time, but I'll come back at the latter stages, heck, at the very end. And I'll also have like a little bonus, and we'll go over the whole process. But first, head first, eye first. Eye first? Let's do the eyes first. I'm trying to figure out strategically, because I have to move this way. And getting my hand in, if I do the head, I'd be probably going across it. So let's not run that chance. Let's be safe and not smear paint. That's a good idea. All right. So the key in this part is I want the right consistency, right? Not too thick that it lays on like wash, but not too thin that it runs just like watercolor. So I want it just that right consistency. And so that's what I'm trying to get right now. So first, let's do her eyes. So again, since eyes make the piece pretty much, and this is where the audience will focus. This is where I go first. I usually always go to where the main focus will be, and eyes will usually always be that main focus. You gotta be careful. Feeling a bit shaky, but we got it. Alright, no worries, we got this. Alright, let's give that one more time. Just doesn't look dark enough. Okay, alright, let's go for the other eye. Now, what does defining do? One, it cleans up certain areas, and we'll go over this more at the very end. But because it's watercolor, right, it sometimes has a tendency to bleed into areas that aren't its designated area. And so I find that going over it with detailing like a very tiny brush like so, I can bring it back in line, cover up some of where it's bleeding, boost the colors, make it look all pretty and nice. Now, you don't want to go too far with this, because the power of watercolor is that there's a bit of spontaneous chaos, and that's what I think people come for. Like, every medium has its pros and cons. And I think for watercolor, part of the pro is there is a natural uncontrollableness of it, a bit of chaos. And I think that's what people like to see. If they wanted it perfectly manicured, perfectly tailored, it would be in computer, where such things are an everyday occurrence. Right? You can control. Look at that. That's beautiful. That's a little bit aggressive. It's quite nice. I should I'm debating things in my mind. I should probably do the brown, right? The head. Or I could do the green. Which green? Probably the light green first. I could add some blue to it to make it a bluish green. Okay. Should I clean the brush or just go for it? Since we have a dark green, let's wash. So water a little bit. I think there might be too much water. So we'll move it up and away, and then come back down so I can get the consistency that I'm looking for. Okay, so for the eye, we're gonna lay down this green for that edge. Lay down this green for that edge. So I'm cleaning this up, just trying to bring some of this. Now, some people, they can thrive off of the chaos. Myself, I love the chaos, but I also like a really nice structured image. Not to the point of, gouache or computer, but I do like my characters just slightly more manicured than. Okay. Am I gonna use this green or this green? Let's say this green. do 3. All right. And so first, let's do the inside of her eye. This light green. We're just punching that up. And then we use some of this dark green, some of this. Try to get this to the right consistency. And then introduce this when it's already wet, so it'll bleed a little bit. And then I'll wait until it dries and then go in just a little bit more with dry brush. So yes, we are at the dry brush phase. We're doing less and less staining and more dry brush to get that complete desired effect. Right? Just a little bit bolder. I like that. I like it a lot. Okay, wash it, and now we'll do this orangey brown, and we're going to use this as the outline for the head. Move that water just away from, move the water a little away from this so I can get some more dry. Okay, I think that's the right consistency for me. And okay, no, we should probably continue on this way. Okay, now I can go from this side. So that's the lighter brown. Now for the darker brown, let's go for this one. So water, is it? Okay, I'll try to get the right consistency. That's nice. All right, for this, we're gonna go more underneath and just a little bit thicker. Right, I want the lines thinner and then get thick underneath the chin. That might be too much. All right, and that will dry just a little bit lighter. And if I want to touch up some more, I may do so. What else? Okay. Let's go for the upper lip area. And now the problem that I have when I detail is that I can do this for a long time. I'm talking excessively so. And that can be a problem for me because you want to leave just some areas raw and untouched. And I have a tendency to overdo it for minimum gains. So let's call that number 1. I'm going to do some more over the next couple days and we'll come back and I'll go over what I settled, what I did for the final. But let's go on to number 2. All right, for number 2, same deal. We're gonna start with the blue of her eyelashes. So let's wash this brush, come back into this blue, and it's the same as 1. Also, another thing about detailing is that I'm trying to be very careful with it. And so I'm not as talkative because when I'm going over the broad strokes, I can fudge some things and not be too worried about it. But at this stage is where the fear comes in. Don't mess it up, be calm and cool. So there's less talking, more doing. All right, now for the green. Okay. All right, now let's go for the darker green. I can do a little bit more of this outside, the outer rim of her eye. All right, let's just touching it up a bit. Now let's do some of the brown for her head outline. I gotta watch out. I think that blue might still be wet. All right, and the darker brown along this lower edge. It's a bit too much, just to give it a little bit of deep definition. This eye, a little bit of. Yeah. There's more I can do, and I will, but probably off camera. So let's move on to number 3. All right, the third and final one. Wash the brush just a little bit. And again, we'll start with the blue. Let's get in there. Okay, try to get it the right consistency. And keep going. Detailing is one of my favorite parts because I now have a clearer picture. Okay? The heavy lifting has been done, the painting has been painted, and now we're just adding that final polish that brings it on home. Bring it on home. All right. And let's do that green. So wash it, bring back this green. And again, we do the outside, the rim of the eye, light green and dark. And do the tops of the eye, the outer eye, and then we're gonna use this darker, dip it, the excess off. It needs to be that right consistency. Not too thick, but not too thin. It's like a Goldilocks situation. All right. And I'll do some other stuff and off camera, and then I'll come back and we'll wrap this thing up. And then I'll have a little bonus section that goes over the whole process in brief with an example or examples. I don't know. So yeah, start of detailing. All right, so now we have come to the end of this whole project. We've done it. Here is number 1, totally painted. I've got the buildup of layers, the detailing. We washed it down, went back in, reintroduced the colors, did the detailing, washed it down, and then for the third time, we reintroduced the colors, detailed it, and this is the final. This is the result. Good job, us. There's just, well, this is number 1, this is number 2, and this is number 3. And the final part, the final thing that we have to do is now relieve it from its base. So let's start with number 1 and then go step. Oh, this one's probably the easiest one. But number 1, we unlock it, take out the holding it in place. And sometimes it will want to come up by itself. But there's this little area here in the back you can then cut. And so I try to do this carefully. 1, you don't want to cut yourself because that would be bad. And usually by the end, usually comes up fairly easily. Allegedly. I want to do this carefully off camera. So we try to cut around this thing carefully and try not to cut ourselves, which would be bad. Very, very bad. So we're trying to get this 1 page out almost. And 1 more, I believe. 1 more side. You can hear that. It's satisfying. Okay. And there we go. Yeah, we have 1 more page left. And this, I don't know what I'm going to use it on, but we'll use it on something. And there we go. We are now free. You're free. Let me get your sister again. And then we'll take a look at it after. Number 2, undo the clamps, keeping this totally in place. And this one had pretty much already separated. When you get things wet over and over and over again, the paper starts to warp and wiggle and all of that. And so now this one is free. You're free, my girl. You're free. I'll put you with your sister, even though they're all the same character. And number 3, the same thing. It's starting to separate at the bottom, but we can go from the side here, which is where you're supposed to. Right. This is where we would start. So let's go down or up. Usually it just glides like that. Comes towards me. Turn that corner. Maybe this should be the example because this one's coming out so smoothly. Although I saved that. Watch me jinx myself. And around this side. And then the final will come back up. And there we go. Pretty nice, pretty nice. So this is the last one. Let's bring them back. And that is, I use these color blocks, which is just already pre-made, cut out sheets, put together, glued on the side. And these I usually use for tests. Cold press, what's the size on this? 7 by 10, 20 sheets, 140 pounds cold press. And the same with this one. And this one is slightly different in that it's a Winsor Newton. So yeah, I use these to do tests with. And these are the results. We did it. We did it. 1, 2, and 3. But let's take a moment to talk about what I do on a larger scale for just a moment. And then we'll come back and finish this off. So now I have a larger piece, right? This is one of what I would do after I have a test. Right? I have my X-Acto knife, and now I'm going to cut along the edges. I've already cut some of the edge, but this one is still sticking. And so this is what I normally do to relieve it from its bounds. And I might have to do 2 or 3 rounds. I go 3 and then turn it and then do another 3. But since I've already done this before, I think it might be done. Let's see. Okay, free on that side, free on this corner. And so we have it. At the corners is the hardest part because it doesn't want to let go sometimes. All right, got that corner. Now we have just 1 more. All right, so now we'll stickage. So now it is freed of the wood, and I'll take this off later, but we have our finished piece. Let me put this back so I don't cut myself. Exacto, done. Don't need this. Okay, so now let's talk about testing and finals. So these are the three that were done, and I'll have these scanned and then I'll put them up and you can see them side by side and all of that. But those, the finished ones, started with these tests. Right? This is where we started. These were the tests done much like the watercolor blocks. They're smaller, and I did my watercolor tests. A little bit of background. I tried to get the figure and colors that I would approximately do in the larger versions, all done. So this is what I mean by when I did tests. And so these I could use as basis for larger paintings. But I think these look pretty good on their own. It all depends on what you want to do. It all depends on you. So again, the same size as these, right? 140-pound sheets that were attached to blocks. I did the painting, cut them out, and that was the tests that led to larger paintings like so. So here's an example of the test that we did in small. It's got everything, and then I made a bigger version on better quality paper. Did the whole thing, backgrounds more worked out. Some of the colors are more defined. I did more experimentation and I could make the colors darker. And this is what that looks like. And I like doing this for larger scale paintings. If I can get my idea out and then refine it in a larger piece. But yeah, this is usually what I do. Let's take another example. Number 2, start small, get your whole idea out, colors, all of that, and then work that up on a larger, more finished, more refined piece. This is much simpler here than here. And the colors are more worked up, shall we say? This is how I like to work up my watercolors. Start small, then try larger, better paper. And this is the three phase format is what I did for this one. And let's take one last example. So again, I started small, simple. It's got the very briefest of backgrounds and color scheme, just working out the idea. And then the final one is much more refined. I spent more time on it, tried to use more colors, and with better paper, it holds the colors better, usually. Sometimes you can get funky paper, but in general, and that is, I think that's delightful. And yeah, the whole 3 phases in watercolor, built up from the base, wash it down, bring the colors back in, push those colors, detail, then wash it down again. So the 3 phases are, 1, you do the base coat, detailing, wash it down. Second phase, you push those colors and reintroduce them again. Try to push them. By pushing colors, I mean deepen and enrich the colors. Do the details, fine brush work, dry brush, wash it down again. And then for the third phase, reintroduce the colors relatively simply and a lot of detailing, a lot of dry brush is usually, and that is usually the process. So those are examples of how I go from the small to a larger piece. And this can go, I can do a small one and then have this very, very large. This is a more moderate enlargement. So let's wrap this up. This is number 1, lovely, Beautiful Beast Kiss, chibi form. I did, I think, the very first chibi art of this on my channel, and now this is it as watercolor. Number 2, on this one, I did more dry brush for the first phase. I mean, not dry brush, not wet into wet. I just did the base coat, and then I refined it from there. And then number 3, which is one of my favorites, Beautiful Beast Kiss. I like this one. It's got all the colors, some detail work. I worked on the edges to make them crisp, and I think it looks pretty nice. It has that watercolor feel where there's some fading, some softness, but I think that was delightful. So that was 1, 2, and 3. And once I have these scanned, I'll show them right now. But this is the project. We did it. We come to the end of this. 1, 2, and 3. Watercolor. 3 phases. And that concludes our summer study of watercolor. Thank you for joining me. I have been Trey Hodges. You can find my work at treyhodges.com. Power to all the creators. And I will see you in September when we get started with the end of the year madness. Probably inking, a lot of inking stuff as we round this year out. Wow, I can't believe it's already late August. But I will see you next time. Take care, keep shining, and have a good day.